So yeah, here we are, everybody. The climax to this storyline that's been going on for actually quite a few months now. If you remember exactly what started, I'll get to that in a moment. You guys are probably aware I don't do a lot of these commentaries on my reviews and videos. I believe this is only the second one I've ever done. But there is a purpose to this. There's a number of things I need to get out, get off my chest, and make sure everyone knows exactly what was the motivation and drive behind creating this storyline. First things first, I want to make absolutely certain that I cannot thank Carrie enough as she comes onto camera right now. I cannot thank her enough for her participation in all of this. We had to adjust the script somewhat in that her scenes and her review recordings would be taking place at her home down in Austin because she couldn't make it up here to Dallas-Fort Worth. But, we adjusted. We managed to put aside the right time, and I'm glad to hear that she's gotten some good feedback from her performances in these videos. The main thing was that, there was obviously some issues. There were probably some times I wish maybe I could have done better directing and done some extra takes, but I think it worked well in the end because I think part of the purpose of her character on camera was that she was to come off as, someone who didn't have a lot of experience being an internet reviewer. She was kind of just thrown into it. So I think it kind of worked in that sense. Anyway, on to the storyline in place, which you're probably all aware. It really started back last summer with the Pinky, Elmira, and the Brain review. That was the first of those reviews where I was receiving ultra bad TV shows from some unnamed source, and that was another thing I actually had to change as far as the storyline goes, because originally the script I did have planned that it would be Diamanda Hagen to be the one that had been sending me all that stuff. Unfortunately, I couldn't get in touch with her, couldn't plan it so that she could make an appearance on the show, so yeah, I kind of had to throw in my own self-created character of Professor Stupidiot in its place. And yeah, a lot of people caught on that it was pretty much a copycat of Dr. Doofenshmirtz, which was the gag there. But anyway, this was a storyline that I'd had planned for actually a couple of years now, to be perfectly honest. And I kept holding back on it, mainly because I had a feeling people who watched it would notice the obvious numerous other places that it was inspired by. Obviously, I think if you take a look at it, there was especially the last few videos, there was some stuff that was inspired by the Linkara Lost storyline of Atop the Fourth Wall, and the climax of this final episode, there was definitely part of the finale to the 6th season of Buffy, as well as the Dark Nella storyline from the Nostalgia Chick. And the fact that it would obviously so blatantly look like I had taken stuff from those, although I actually got some comments suggesting it came from somewhere else, which I'll get to that when we get to that point in this video. But basically, yeah, because I was certain that people would just call this as being just a ripoff of so many other internet reviewer storylines, I did hold back on doing this for quite some time now. But then something happened, and I don't know how many of you guys are aware of this. If you probably have been, if you follow me on social media, this last couple of years, I've been going through some pretty big issues, some pretty big problems, mostly personally and professionally in my life. And I've basically had to deal with a lot of anger issues. And like I said, I know I don't usually come off that in my Candid with Chris videos. I try to be very cordial and respectful of all my fans. But if you followed me, especially on Facebook, with my own personal posts and comments, you could probably see that I was getting very vicious and very vocal and very angry in a lot of being crusading a lot of different social and political issues. And the more I looked at this storyline that I had planned out, the more I kept seeing how perhaps it did reflect quite a bit on my own personal life, that I was just getting all of this anger built up inside me, much like the anger that was to be building up, inside my character, that was to ultimately culminate in him being vulnerable to being taken over by the Merc demon, so to speak. And when I realized that, it just came to me. I had to do this storyline. It just something tell me with hope that it would be somewhat therapeutic in getting this done. But we just passed the brony joke. I really hope I didn't upset and get ticked off a lot of bronies for that joke I threw in there. But anyway, like I said, I just felt that this was something I had to get out of there. I had to push it out, and maybe that's the wrong term, but just feeling that doing this would be therapeutic, that I might somehow see myself on camera being so hateful and angry. And did it work? I really don't know. I mean, only the next few weeks and months are gonna tell whether or not I can control this. I should point this stuff out, and I actually meant to say this much earlier in this commentary, just to make certain everybody knows this. No, this is not the end of TV Trash. This is not the end of any Rowdy Reviewer movies. That was never the plan at all. Actually, surprised I got quite a few comments as this thing was building up, thinking this was going to be my way of ending the show, much like the Nostalgia Critic did. That was never my intention. If anything, doing this show and being able to perform and lash out against bad TV shows in my character's form, that's getting the comments and getting the praise from you guys, from all my viewers. That's been the one thing that's really allowed me to maintain my sanity, so to speak. Otherwise, I don't know where I'd be if it wasn't for doing this show. And I know how corny this is going to sound, but I do owe this all to you guys. I mean, everybody it doesn't matter if you've been with me from the beginning when I first started posting the 10-minute videos on YouTube to what I'm doing now. As I speak, I'm awaiting to see if there's the rare shot that my audition will get approved to get on that guy with the glasses. We're just going to have to wait and see on that. But no matter what, everybody who's watched the videos, commented on them, saying how much they appreciate my work, I can't overemphasize what that's meant to me. How just knowing that there are people out there who have enjoyed my work that has driven me to keep this going. And just have something that I can use as a venue to perform and get something out. It may have saved my sanity, to be perfectly honest. I don't know how even more angrier I probably would be if I didn't have this as a venue to go out. So, believe me, I've got plenty planned for the future of this show. Hopefully this will continue for a much longer time. In fact, see, we're just a few short videos away from the 150th episode of TV Trash. And this whole thing, this entire storyline, it may technically be at an end, but this is just building up to what I've got planned for the 150th episode. And literally, I'm keeping that secret as to what the 150th review is going to be and everything. It's all going to play out. I may have to make some adjustments on how I build up the next couple of episodes, contingent on whether or not I get approved for that guy with the glasses. But one way or another, whether I'm on there or I stick with my friends at Reviewers Unknown, the show is going to get back up. It's going to be a few more weeks from now. Right now I've got a target date of, let's see, I believe probably June 30th should be the date that the next new TV trash review will be coming into play. And I still got a couple of other videos, one or two more that I should be posting in preparation while we wait for this. I'm in contact with a couple of people for a couple of crossovers we've got planned. One that's going to incur some travel for me, just like my review with John for the Garfield show review did last year. So there's definitely a lot of stuff planned. And you don't have to worry because I am not going anywhere. And I'm finding myself kind of having to draw this out, so to speak, before I get to at least the spot in this video where the commercial break is. But as I said, what I'm gonna have planned is I believe we've got 2 other videos before we get to the 150th, and there's going to be almost sort of a mini storyline to build up to that. I've got some people that are going to help me out with a video or 2. I'm going to be getting back in touch with them to write up and script those reviews in the very near future. So, in fact, when I was preparing this, I actually had to cut a couple of episodes that was originally planned. There was supposed to actually be another video during the Missing Rowdy part of this storyline in which, the PO'd pizza guy was going to do a review and cover 2 guys, a girl, and a pizza place. But I basically had to cut that from the schedule when I realized I was getting closer to the 150th episode than I thought I was. And probably worked out for the best anyway, because at least for the first couple of episodes I saw of 2 guys, a girl, and a pizza place, I'm not exactly sure if that show is bad enough to warrant a complete review. I mean, maybe we'll get around to it eventually. But yeah, there was going to be another one that would have dragged this out even more, and maybe that worked out for the better, and that I didn't keep this going on too long. But by my count, I think we're at 147 episodes by my official count, and I kind of had to, and you'll probably count the episodes and we'll come up with a different number, and yeah, maybe I fudged the books a little to try to get in that area, but hey, it's just something that I think I can get this. And so the 150th episode should be planned. I believe will be taking place, if I do this correctly, it will be, if June 30th is when we return. The July 14th, I believe, will be the day of the 150th review that we can plan all of this out. But yeah, we got definitely a lot of stuff coming. I still have to plan out what reviews I'm going to have after summer. I've actually got 2 ideas for the Summer Spectacular, but I think I've finally settled on which one I'm going to do. Anyway, so you might get some ideas as to where I got the idea for this particular storyline and particularly this episode. So I don't remember if I've gotten any requests for Rainbow Brite, although some people did talk to me about how they were glad that I did ultimately review this. And yes, this is one of those shows that I actually did watch as a kid, and I'm going to end up bringing up some history of me and my sister here, and I really hope she doesn't throttle me by talking about this. But then again, she said some stuff about our past in a blog post she did on her own blog a few months back, so I'm saying this is fair game. Interesting enough about that blog, with the things she talked about, she pointed out that back when we were kids and we always had our Let's Pretend games, she said how I always insisted on being the good guy of our adventures and she was the villain. That wasn't always the case. And Carrie, if you're watching, you remember, I remember the one exception to that, and it is connected to Rainbow Brite here. And for those aware that obviously my sister was the much bigger Rainbow Brite fan than I was. She had all the dolls in addition to watching these television specials, but actually more or less, as officially, it was me who owned the Murky, Dismal, and Lurky dolls. And therein lies what I'm getting at here, because when we had our Let's Pretend adventures playing with her Rainbow Brite dolls, the whole gag was that, yeah, we were inserting ourselves into our own adventures, but she was with Rainbow Brite and the Color Kids. I was allied with Murky and Lurky. And don't ask me why that was. I think it because I had a deal where I figured if I was back then, since I was the boy, I had to ally with them or something one way or the other. But yeah, that even back then, there was probably a small indication that I gravitated to the grumpy, sarcastic types. Just throw that in there with Alf, Garfield, Oscar the Grouch, and so on and so forth. But just remembering those adventures that we had, that kind of, that was basically a lot of the inspiration for this, that I could use Murky Dismal as my outlet as to how I could how I could show myself letting my anger get away from me and have me turning into this monster that's trying to take joy and happiness out of the world and make everyone feel as miserable and angry as my character is supposed to do. Yeah, I still don't remember where the princess got that ability to turn things into diamonds, because I have seen the Rainbow Brite and the Star Stealer movie. I actually hope that someone else will review that movie. I know D of 24 Frames did a pretty decent review on it, but, he got out of the reviewer business quite a while ago, so I'd say that movie's fair game. In fact, I don't know if you knew this, there's actually DC printed a comic book adaptation of Rainbow Brite and the Star Stealer, and I'm kind of hoping that someone like Linkara and the Nostalgia Chick will team up to possibly review that. Maybe Linkara and Mars Girl, or Linkara and J.O., one or the other. I don't know if J.O. would be into this, since it's technically Western animation and not anime, although there was a lot of Easterners that produced this. In fact, I don't know if you guys know this, but the people who composed the music for the Rainbow Brite series, and actually did compose the music for a lot of cartoons back in the 80s, were Haim Saban and Shuki Levy. Of course, the guys who would go on to produce Power Rangers and the other Saban productions. And in fact, there were a lot of familiar voice actors from that series that probably would have remembered, as I believe, Murky Dismal was voiced by Peter Cullen, and Lurky was voiced by Pat Fraley, if you could believe it or not. Believe me, if I had been the one, if Rowdy had been the one making the review, I definitely would have pointed that out, but obviously I had to leave that out because that was probably a lot of small, nerd-like background information that the Slacker Sis character wasn't going to be able to do. And now you probably see one of the small difficulties I had with the production as we get to the climactic scene. Yeah, almost everything, with the exception of these shots with the cats, were not done completely in person at this location. This was filmed at the Richard Green Linear Park and the Caleb Moore Stones that are here in Arlington. It's right in between the Rangers ballpark and the Cowboys Stadium. Well, outside of those shots with the cats, everything else here, if it wasn't blatantly obvious, was done by green screen. And part of that was obviously the fact that we had to put Carrie with a green screen, since she couldn't be there in person to do the shots here in Arlington. But for me, I thought about whether or not I should do this to film myself in person at the park, or do green screen, and I opted for the green screen because so I wouldn't have to deal with wind noise in person. Because whenever I review outside, the wind makes a lot of noise on the camera microphone, so I was able to just mute the volume on the video, and boy, that's probably one of the most blatant examples of green screen right there. And another thing you obviously tell is obviously my Hot Rod shirt that I'm wearing in this wrestling mark. And oh my good night, I was wearing my glasses in that shot. I didn't even notice that. Oh God, I really fracked that up. And that was supposed to be a shot of me, my eyes turning gray from gray to back to my normal color of blue, but I didn't have the technology good enough and it wasn't focused enough that I just eliminated it, but I was able to get that shot down. But yeah, if you saw my shirt, a Hot Rod shirt, the yellow part of the Hot Rod logo was not coming through because apparently my green screen affected my program, does it for yellow in addition to green. And well, basically here we come to the climax. And boy, if anything was more blatant than the ending of the 6th season of Buffy, it would be the way this thing ended right here. And yeah, there is a bit of irony in that because of how much I chided the 6th season of Buffy. As we roll the end credits here, and you'll probably see kind of the really goofy stuff that I did in these credits, in particular crediting, Robert Hayden as the wrestling mark. That's kind of a tribute to what happened in sometimes shows like Bewitched, for those not aware. The character of Serena, despite being played by Elizabeth Montgomery, was credited as Pandora Sparks. So I kind of used that same issue there. And the other thing is, I guess once we get to the actual songs, the credit here, you will basically see the full names that I ultimately gave all 4 of the Ninja Cats. And yeah, they're pretty cheesy. You probably already know about Persnickety and Felicitas. And then, yeah, I'm really bad and stupid in creating names as far as last names for my Ninja Cats. They're probably not really proud of that. But yeah, that's this basically. I definitely needed to produce this commentary in addition to producing this video, this review, to just get it off my chest as to why I had to do this. So basically, all of you guys know, and like I said there in the credits, we will see you once again in the summer. We've got a lot of stuff planned, and again, thank you. Thank each and every one of you for doing this. You guys mean the world to me. Stay rowdy, my friends.